What's going on, guys? My name is Tim Rustwick, and today we're talking about why starting is harder than doing. We've been on a motivational kick lately. I've been posting a lot of videos on like how to get shit done, how to move forward, how to push past stuff, because it's stuff that I've really struggled with my entire life, and I always want to share that kind of stuff because I kind of wish I would have known it a long time ago. And as I'm working through this stuff, like me, myself included, as I'm actually like doing this stuff and having trouble with it and struggling to get shit done, I want to keep sharing this stuff, not only to help you, but also to like help me a little bit in a way, put this stuff in video form. So like, I can look at it, I can remember it, I can kind of help solidify it in my brain. So this concept of like starting is harder than doing was something that really I realized after actually doing a bunch of stuff, after actually finishing a bunch of stuff. And it's something that you don't realize when you don't have a lot of experience doing something. When you start out, a lot of times in anything, not just game development, but game development is a perfect example, right? Like a lot of us started out with getting inspired by an epic game and wanting to make this massive, huge game. Whenever I tell people, like, say I'm on Xbox Live or something, and people ask me what do I do, I'll say I'll make games or something like that. They'll be like, "Yo, I got this idea. It's like this MMO mixed with this FPS, but like you can go down into first person." Like, but there's RTS elements, and like there's this crazy shit where like you can control the army, but then you can like go down into the first person of the army, and you could like be the guy and do all this. And they'll give me all these ideas that sound like a awesome game, right? But they're just ridiculous in scope. They're insanely large, and that's how I started with my games, right? Like I wanted to make the next Halo. I wanted to make the next epic, awesome Halo game, and for me to like, think about all that and think about all the work that I had to do, all the level design, all the stuff, all the programming, all the models and 3D models and textures and all the just all the work, right? Oftentimes I would just get overwhelmed and never start. And a lot of projects ended up that way. A lot of my projects ended up that way. But what I realized lately, like having finished in 2017, I finished 11 different games. 11 games. 8 were the finish Friday, and then I did 3 different Game Jam games in 2017. And after having done that, like after having gone 10 years without ever finishing, and then to make 11 games in 1 year, it's kind of weird for me, right? But it taught me that like the hardest part of all this stuff is just sitting down to start. It's just getting there, like showing up, right? Sitting at your computer to just make the shit happen. And I know this sounds cliche and this sounds like it's just something that would be in one of those motivational books that doesn't really mean anything, but I want you to listen to what I'm saying here because this is coming from personal experience. It's not coming from some books I read. It's not coming from, some random place. It's coming from legit stuff that I've struggled with and legit stuff that I've had issues with. And I always had an issue with starting. And sometimes it wasn't starting the project. So I want to be very, very clear on that. If you've started a project, it's not always, you're not just automatically immune to this. If you started a project, maybe the thing that you don't want to start is that, retooling of the, weapon system, or that, thing that you have to program, or that art asset that you have to do. No matter what it is, whether it's a massive project that you want to get done, or it's a part of a project that you want to get done, starting is always harder than doing. And for me, the latest example of this in my life is really the cutscene from Phylophobia. I recently I built a cutscene from scratch for the beginning opening scene of Phylophobia, and this was something I stressed over. I've been stressing over this for literally years. I'm not joking. I've been thinking about this cutscene for years. I have evolved in so many different ways. I have pages and pages and pages. I have thousands of words written of different dialogue that I've thrown away. I went back and forth on how it works. A lot of the writing got stripped out of Phylophobia. I had this poetry written for like, the whole thing was supposed to be in love poems kind of thing. So like I had all this poetry for each section of the game, and a lot of that got stripped out. And then I had to put all of that into a cutscene, and I've been putting it off since I made the commitment to actually like get this shit done and actually finish this game, which is one of the bigger projects that I've done, I've just been putting that off, man. Like I've done everything but that. I have like went around that in so many different ways. I've tried so many different things, like, and it's just I was avoiding it because of how difficult I thought it was going to be, how hard it was going to be. And it's crazy because literally as of like, you know, a day ago, I probably have 4 to 8 hours into this cutscene now. It's a in-game engine cutscene, so it's not like a video coded one. But with the help of one of our fellow community members, Will, thank you very much for the help. I appreciate the inspiration. I was able to kind of finish the cutscene in a little under like 10 hours. So I spent not only years thinking about it, I spent months stressing over it. I spent way too much time like obsessing over it and just thinking about how hard it was going to be. And then when I finally got started, I was just able to kind of push it out there. And now there are other things at play, right? Like I did have a lot of thought into it. I kind of knew where I wanted to go. Coming back to it after time helped with the clarity. Will help me out with a lot of the ideas and suggestions for how I should do it, which I'm extremely appreciative for. But like starting was way harder than doing, man. It was I don't even want to put this video out because that's how dumb I feel about like having gone through this whole process and obsessing over this thing and then just like making it and being extremely proud of it. And literally it was like 8 to 10 hours. It wasn't months. It wasn't like weeks. It wasn't, you know, some epic thing. I just stopped obsessing. I sat down to do it and I did it. And it took, you know, half a day for 2 days and I got it done. And that kind of makes me want to like, you know, put that sort of cutscene into other parts of the game that I had cut out cutscenes from because I felt like they would be too difficult. But now that I've been able to do this, like, you know, I know it's a little bit of scope creep, but I feel like I should put them back in because they make more sense. They would really help the player understand the world and they would help with the story progression and stuff. So that's just one example. I have hundreds, I have thousands of these examples. Like the games are another example, man. Like you guys saw all the projects I had for Finish Friday, right? Like I have projects in my hard drive for days that I just started for some reason and I would mess around with stuff and then I would just get to something that I didn't want to do, that I didn't want to start on. Maybe it was the menu screen, maybe it was the audio, whatever. I just didn't want to start it. So I would abandon the project. I would abandon the whole project because like I didn't want to start that one thing. I would just move on to something else. And Finish Friday really said, no, I'm going to sit down and systematically start every single one of these pieces that I left missing. And I know I called it Finish Friday, right? Because we finished the game. But really, that came down to a fear of starting different things, right? A lot of times our struggles with finishing has to do with not wanting to start something, not wanting to recode or refactor that thing, not wanting to build that whole system and redo the AI, not wanting to whatever, like it's some form of procrastination, right? And starting is always harder than doing. And no matter what I do, like I just experience this more and more and more. And I feel like it's a universal law of the universe or something, because I swear to God, man, now that I'm in the mindset of like finishing everything that I start and like actually getting stuff done and actually having the discipline to carry through and like committing to myself, starting is always the hardest part. It's always the hardest part. And like my video, you know, yesterday talked about how the only way to really fail is to quit. But a lot of people fail before they even start because they never start. And it's sad to see, you know. I mean, I often talk about how awesome it would be to see all indie games that were started finished and like to be able to go through those and just see what those would look like, because there's so many unfinished projects in the world. But imagine how many more projects there are that never even got started because people overwhelmed. They didn't feel like they could pull it off. They were scared. They didn't want to get ridiculed. They were worried about what people were going to say, you know, whatever. Starting is always harder than doing from multiple perspectives, not just technical, but from emotional perspectives, from like time perspectives, from, you know, whatever, it's always, always, always harder than doing. So if you're wondering whether or not you should start, if you're sitting there not starting, if you haven't started yet, just start, man. Just start. Whatever level you're at. If you know Unity, start on that project. If you know whatever game engine, do it. If you don't know a game engine, pick one, download it, play some tutorials, make a Pong game. Just start. Just start, and that's what's important. And I can't stress how important this is in my life, and I need to remember this going forward. So that's kind of why I'm reiterating in the video, because so many things, man, I procrastinate and I don't start, and then they don't ever get done. And every time I do sit down to start them, they're always way easier than I thought they would be, and it goes faster and smoother than I thought it would be. And you know, there are hiccups along the way. I'm not going to say this is a universal rule. Shit happens. Stuff, you know, goes wrong. But in my experience, starting is always harder than doing. So it's not the doing you got to worry about. It's the starting and finishing. Finishing is important too. Don't forget that. But that's all I got for you today. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment down below. Are you afraid of starting sometimes? You get overwhelmed and never start stuff? Is there something in your current project that you've maybe been procrastinating and not starting? Have you ever found something was a lot easier once you actually got started on it? Leave your stories down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Once again, I'm Tim Roswick, and I'll see you again tomorrow.